Hey traders, Michael or Mini Frost here. You're here for another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis. Today's Thursday, September 4th, 2025. You're looking at a daily chart of the SPY or Spiders, which is the proxy for the S&P 500. What do we have on the docket today? Well, today was pretty much just one of those floater days, floating them up towards the all-time high. She's at 0.84%, coming up a few cents short of the all-time high. The previous all-time high is at 649.48. Today we made a high of 649.15. So I do have our longer term pivot on the board that comes in at 643.45. And remember, closing above and staying above is the bull case scenario. Yesterday we closed a little bit over the number. We closed at 643.74, so around 30 cents above. And today we had some nice follow through. I told you that this number, this longer term pivot, is going to be important throughout the week. Take a look at what the low was today. The low was at 643.51, came up 6 cents short. But what she did manage to do is fill this gap right here. That was the gap from yesterday. She took care of it, came up a few cents short of the pivot, and then ripped it right back in the other direction, pretty much for a floater day today. Alright, so let's go back to the daily chart and just take a look at this in a technical analysis perspective. On Tuesday, the day after Labor Day, turnaround Tuesday, we had this big gap down, took care of some unfinished business down below, and then for what the day was worth, we had a decent close. We were below the 20-period moving average, but then throughout the day, we managed to fight back towards it, closing pretty much right on it. But we were a good chunk of change away from the pivot, so that is the first sign of some bearish behavior. Then yesterday, Wednesday, we had a gap up higher, near the vicinity of the pivot, went to go back and test the 20-period moving average. That's some normal garden variety behavior, but key puzzle piece information is that we did come up short of the gap. The gap comes in at 640.27, and we made a low of 640.46. So that's interesting information. We'll put it in our back pockets and keep it as some puzzle piece information. That's now considered unfinished business. And take a look at where we closed the day. The close was 643.74, so slightly above the longer term pivot. So we were well below it on Tuesday. Yesterday, we closed pretty much on it, slightly above. And today, look at this. We're already back at all-time highs. A stone's throw away. Now, it's funny that she didn't push past the all-time high. That's another puzzle piece that we'll put on the table. It was a floater situation today. She had every opportunity to continue pushing higher, but she stopped right before the all-time high for a reason. What that reason is, we don't care, but it's just something to look at and take it at face value. So now look at this. We're above the pivot, a stone's throw away from making new all-time highs. We're above all the moving averages, so the trend is your friend. So just by the looks of it in pure technical analysis, this looks pretty bullish. So now the question becomes, are we going to receive some follow through and make new all-time highs? Or is this a fake out situation, going for a test of new all-time highs, shaking out some traders, and then heading back right towards the pivot, 643.45. This doesn't have to be the last time we see the pivot. It's been important throughout the whole entire week. Look, it was important here, over here, pretty much nailing it a few times. And then on Tuesday, when we had that gap lower, if you take a look at the extended hours, we actually came right back to the pivot and immediately was rejected. So that's another sign of importance. And then on Wednesday, poking our heads above it, closing above it slightly, and then the low of day today was pretty much right on the pivot. So this certainly doesn't have to be the last time we see the pivot, but as of right now, she's in a pretty bullish situation, above all the moving averages, above the pivot, a stone's throw away from the all-time highs. Just from a technical analysis perspective, there's nothing wrong with the chart, but who's not to say she can't make one last attempt towards the pivot? It's literally been important throughout the entire week and last week. Just throwing that out there. One last thing before we move on is that we do have a tinfoil hat event coming up next week. This is the second blood moon of the year. It's also the start of a total lunar eclipse. And for those of you who don't know, across many cultures, total lunar eclipses were seen as turning points. That's why we call it a tinfoil hat event. We're essentially looking for a turn. It's the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. The door closes so another one can open. This tinfoil hat event in particular takes place on Sunday. And we know the importance of the tinfoil hat events. It's your choice if you want to believe in it, but generally speaking, we've discussed this many times, but the market likes to either trade up or down into these events, and not every time, but many times, the market will turn after these events. It's not necessarily the minute after, the day after, sometimes it's even the day of, leading up to it. It's just around the time of when the tinfoil hat event takes place. There's no set in stone date of when something is going to happen with these tinfoil hat events, but with that, we'll deem it as we're looking for a turn. Let's go ahead and switch over to inside the numbers, starting with the 0 dark 30 stuff. This is the game plan all laid out for you well before the morning bell. So you could have guessed that the morning pivot is at 643.45. That's a no-brainer. And let's see what we got. On the downside, before getting back towards the pivot, there is a support number in front at 644.20 for a possible scalp with potential. And then getting below opens the door back towards the pivot, yada yada yada. We never got below the pivot, so we don't need to worry about any of the numbers down below. So let's go check it out. Okay, right at the vertical line is today's activity. As you can see, we got 644.20. The low right here, 644.19. Spiked it by 1 penny. We'll give that a funny how that works. So she provided the bare minimum base hits, and by base hits, we're looking for 50 to 70 SPY cents or 5 to 7 ES points. That is considered the base hit, and then we hold a trailer for the never know. And it's essential that we do not let the trades go bad on us. Once we book the base hit, we call it a risk-free emotionless trade. We're in the driver's seat, so we're holding a trailer for the never know, but we're ensuring that the trade won't go bad on us in case it goes back down like it did right here. That's why stops are so important. Alright, so as we saw from earlier, she came up a tad bit short of the pivot. The low was at 643.51. She did go ahead and fill this gap right here. Never quite made it back to the pivot, came up 6 cents short, and then pretty much a floater rest of the day. So I do have some overhead resistance levels. I had a zone. That zone came in at 646.20 to 647.30. And as you could see, that number was certainly important, but there wasn't enough volatility within the market to actually make a move at those numbers. There wasn't enough energy within the market. It was coming up into lunchtime. That's torture time. No one likes to be in torture time. We weren't trading this zone. As you could see, literally just eating time off the clock at these numbers, both of these numbers. But it's funny how the numbers still work. And she was eating time off the clock at these numbers. They were resistance numbers for a reason. So you could go ahead and pause the video, read the notes, and go back to the chart to double check the work. It's all in here, everything that you need to be a successful trader, trading the S&P or any of the other markets that we offer. We got IWM, the Qs, SMH, gold, crude, silver, natural gas, Bitcoin. We got an opportunity around the corner for everybody. Speaking of other opportunities, we also have a whole section for stocks on the move. These are stocks that are moving in the morning. We had 3 in total today. 2 of them hit their entry targets. We got CRM, Salesforce, and TXN, Texas Instruments. Let's start with CRM first. Entry number 1, 238.50. Entry number 2, 237 with a stop at 234.47. So here we got Salesforce. We got all the numbers on the board. Here are the 2 entries with the stop in red. And as you can see, she came up a few pennies of the stop. And by the way, it's on an hourly close. So closing candles hourly below the stop, then the trade is essentially over. But as long as we're closing candles above and staying above on an hourly basis, the trade is still good, and as you could see, it worked out pretty damn well. For those who stuck with it, it was more of a tougher trade, no doubt, but if you fought through it, traders got paid. Again, it's essential to have a stop. You guys know that. What about Texas Instruments, TXN? Well, unlike CRM, we got it on the first entry at 182.73, spiked it by a touch, but nevertheless ripped it right back in the other direction for a nice little trade. Gave you almost $6. By the way, before we move on, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as that would be greatly appreciated. Also, one more thing, we are running the Labor Day special for the Lazy Swing Trader. This ends Saturday at 11:59. And take a look at this. We got a 100% win rate in August. Scrolling all the way down, you can see the list of all the trades. Our win rate is at 87%, might even be a little bit more. Haven't calculated it since this rodeo in August. Here you can see what other people are saying, and a lot of people are paying for their subscription within the first trade or so. How you doing? And by the way, if you're unsure about the lazy swing trader, you can get a free swing trade straight from the system. Again, 87% win rate. You get email alerts sent straight to your inbox with the profit targets, entry levels, stop loss, everything that you need for a successful swing trade. And it comes straight from our system with an 87% win rate, 100 last month. So if you're still debating and want to test out the waters, you can click the link in the description below. I'm putting the links for both the free swing trade and the Labor Day special, so that will be in the description. And this isn't going to last forever, so you might as well take advantage of it while it's here. Okie doke, let's go move on and take a look at Camp IWM. She's up 1.25%, 1.25, and she's still approaching this overhead resistance zone that we have. She came up a tad bit short of the first number, so that constitutes as a first time, best time situation, but nevertheless, this is a zone for a reason. It's a place where the market shouldn't just waltz right through. So now we're essentially looking for a spike of the first number, possibly reaching at least the midpoint or the back end of the resistance zone. So if we do indeed find resistance at this zone, the question now lies, is the spiders going to follow suit of my number one favorite market leading indicator? Definitely could be possible, unless we're going to experience some type of divergence of any means, but we'll just keep that on the radar screen. IWM, number one favorite market leading indicator, coming into some key overhead resistance levels, while the spiders is a stone's throw away from new all-time highs. Now here's something interesting in the transportation department. First things first, she's up 0.37%, but take a look at this. These two numbers, the support zone that I had on the board for you guys literally all of last week, she hit the first number pretty much on the dot, hit the second number pretty much on the dot, and today hit the back end of the support zone on the freaking dot. How ya doing? I mean, seriously guys, you can't make this up. The numbers work. This is my second favorite market leading indicator. Right now, we managed to close above the 20 period moving average, closing pretty much right on the 50 after making a test or an attempt of the 200 period moving average. We did manage to fill this gap right here, but came up short of the moving average. So all that's going on at the transportation department is hanging around this area, essentially inside this big time breakup candle low. We did manage to spike it today, complete this unfinished business down below. That was this gap right here. That's where the back end of the support number came from. But we really haven't made that much movement at all. We've been teetering around the 3 moving averages for a while now, still continuing to play around the 50 and the 20. Haven't made it to the 200 yet, but we really haven't left this breakup candle. So it looks like she's eating time off the clock, building up energy for another move. She is treating the support zone fairly well. We haven't had that big of a bounce, but the numbers are still working and it is still being utilized as support. So we'll see where the transportation department wants to head to. Is she finally going to break below this breakup candle low, make a test of the 200 period moving average, even spike it down a little bit? We got some important stuff down below. You got the 100. You got the midpoint between the 200 and the 100 that falls in line with this breakup candle low. A little bit more on the lower side, but close enough. I just did a little bit of work, threw out another number at you guys. 15,362 down to the breakup candle low is the next support zone. Might want to jot that down and put it on a sticky note. What's going on with the Q people? She's up 0.91%. Finally made it back above the 20 period moving average after being below it for a few days. And look where we stopped at today. Right at the most recent breakdown candle high. No accidents, no coincidences. So we are back above all the moving averages, so you guys know the saying, the trend is your friend until she throws your shit out the window. And what could possibly happen? Well, we do have some unfinished business down below at 565.62. That's an unfilled gap. We tried to make our way down yesterday, couldn't quite make it, therefore making it unfinished business. You got the 50 period moving average creeping upon it. Also this breakup candle low. So this is an important spot that the market's going to want to head to. Doesn't have to be tomorrow, doesn't have to be next week, but that is going to be an important target / area. If we do manage to close below the 20 period moving average, and again, anything can happen with the snap of the fingers, we are above it now, doesn't mean we'll be above it tomorrow. So the first destination she's going to want to head to is going to complete that unfinished business down below. We are approaching all-time highs. We still kind of have a little bit of way to go, but if she's staying above all the moving averages, gets above this high right here, then at that point we're essentially a stone's throw away. That's for the Q people. Alright, what about XLF, the financials? She's a stone's throw away from all-time highs, so we got a lot of markets that are in some very strong bullish positions right now. Above all the moving averages, the trend is your friend, stone's throw away from all-time highs, but we still have some unfinished business down below. This gap right here that comes in at 53.50 came up short of it today, so that's unfinished business. Although we do have a lot of bullish scenarios across multiple markets, that's not to mention that most of them have some unfinished business down below that she's going to want to head to. The market will always try to go ahead and complete the unfinished business, whether it's down below or up above. The market doesn't like to keep it as unfinished business. They like to make it finished business by actually completing the number. And finished business is a technical term. But there's nothing wrong with the financials, therefore there's nothing wrong with the overall structure of the market. By the way, a little change of character, let's go take a look at Bitcoin. If we go back to inside the numbers, we can take a look at Bitcoin, and we had a support number at 107,833. How you frickin' doing? Pretty much nailed. Fought it a few times, but this was support. This was on the board for all of Inside the Numbers and Live Room members. The numbers that I put out for Bitcoin, for Inside the Numbers and Live Room members, I would say are generally pretty damn good. I don't go over Bitcoin a lot, maybe I'll start doing that a little bit more, but the numbers certainly work because all charts act and react the same way. It doesn't matter if it's a $20 stock, doesn't matter if it's Bitcoin at over 100,000. All charts act and react the same way. For example, Bitcoin found resistance at the most recent breakdown candle high. What was the high? 112,640. The high right here, 112,600. Funny how that works. Caught some overhead resistance right at the 20 period moving average. Coming back down a little, we are below 3 out of the 4 moving averages on the daily time frame. The last line of defense is the 200 period moving average at around 101. But taking a look at the weekly time frame, as we can see, we're still in a strong uptrend. We did manage to hit the 20 period moving average, that is home base, but take a look at this. We were extended from it. Ate some time off the clock in this area right here, waiting for the 20 period moving average to creep on up, and then finally had some downside behavior, finally reaching the 20 period moving average, and essentially bouncing right on it. That did fall in line with our 107 number. How you doing? Last but not least, we got SMH shaking my head, the semiconductors, smash mouth. She's up 1.2%. Still fighting around that 50 period moving average. She closed above it today, and what she's trying to do is go ahead and fill this gap right here at 290.29. Today we made a high of 290.21, so came up 8 cents short. Most likely tomorrow we're going to complete this unfinished business, making it finished business, and then she's going to want to make her way up towards the 20 period moving average, even spiking above it, making her way towards the most recent breakdown candle high. But take note that above that, we do also have a gap at 298.88. That is a stone's throw away from the most recent all-time high. So around this area right here is going to be some overhead resistance for SMH. On the flip side, if we start closing below the 50 period moving average, again, there's a lot of room between the 50 and the 100 period moving average. Last night, I gave you a number. That number comes in at this big time breakup candle low, and that also happens to be the midpoint between the 50 and the 100 period moving average. And just for fun, because you guys know I love the magic calculator, it's a tool that I use every single day. It's an extra tool in our toolbox that helps us build the full stack. And by the way, if you purchase the Lazy Swing Trader with the Labor Day special, you get the magic calculator for free. So if you're unsure about how it works, we use pivot lows and pivot highs. For example, we'll go ahead and take this pivot high right here. That's the most recent pivot high on the board. Another one, just for example, is this one, which is the all-time high. But for now, we'll use this. The high right here is 378. So here we go. We got the magic calculator. Type it in, 378, hit calculate, and we get a list of support numbers. And what do we got right here? 275.33. Put that number on the board, that's in yellow, and that just so happens to fall in line with the midpoint number, the big time breakup candle low, and now we got ourselves a little full stack forming. How you doing? The magic calculator. A very, very underrated tool. Have I told you guys how much I appreciate each and every one of you? Without you guys, these videos or MSF would not be possible. That is true and accurate information. Put it on a sticky note. We're going to pull the ripcord for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in for another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis. I'm 𝘞𝐿. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. You got the Labor Day special and the free swing trade. The link is in the description below. I hope every single one of you has a great rest of your day. Stay safe and take care now, folks.